All right, lesson 6, we're going to be talking about flat images versus images with depth. Here I've got a stick man. It's a pretty flat image. He's just sitting there on the piece of paper doing nothing. Whereas with this photograph here, drawing, you can see that there's depth. You know that this goes on and on and on, and that there are people on it. And you can see that this is a smaller person, not a smaller person, but a person that is just smaller in scale, because there is leading lines, because there's a contrast that you can visually see between something closer, this little bigger man, and something smaller. When you have a photograph that has depth in it, it usually has depth because there is a contrast between the foreground, the subject, and the background. When you take a photo, you can intentionally do this on field, or you can edit it in post. Man, that was hard to say, but I'll show you two examples, both covering what I just said. Here is an example of a photograph that covers it on field. You can see that I kind of have a nice foreground here. There is some branches in the way of the lens that just show like, hey, there's something before what you see after. And it doesn't always need to be branches. It could be a wall, it could be the ground. A lot of people use the ground. They'll get really low in the grass to create a foreground that will separate it and the subject. You can also use lighting to create a separation between these three objects. Here in this photograph, I don't think I've edited this at all, but here at the front part, you see it's really dark. And in the back behind the tree, also really dark. But where the subject is, the tree, it's really bright. And you can see that there's depth to this image because there's a contrast between the background, the subject, and the foreground. If there is no contrast at all, you might end up with something like this. I've used this photo a couple times in this course, but this is a relatively flat image. It doesn't look all that beautiful. There's no depth in the trees. There's no depth like for this, like you don't know how far away this is. There's no like visual indicators that this is far away, right? So what you can do, obviously I'm going to correct this first by bringing everything down. What you can do to show it as further away, because it still doesn't look like it's that far away. This is a big island, very far away. You can add in artificial separation for your subject, your foreground, and your background. So I could put in a mask here and make it a little bit darker, and you can start to see like it adds more depth. This is a trick that a lot of people do, just adding in a mask that darkens the foreground of the image. You can also add in a mask at the top near the sky, which also adds in a lot of depth. This is something that I do for a lot of my photos, and a lot of other people are also doing this. Another thing that a lot of people like to do is add in a vignette, which you can do by adding a radial mask, inverting it by clicking on the three dots above the mask right here, and then just darkening everything around it. You can do that if you would like, or you can go over to the edit tab, scroll down to effects, and add in a vignette here. You have a little bit more flexibility here, and it's a lot easier because you don't have to put in a mask and stuff. The main takeaway I want you to have with this lesson is that separation between your subject, foreground, and background is what adds depth to your image. And you can achieve that on field with things in front of the lens, or with a different lighting situation. Let's say everything behind me was really dark, then I would pop out a lot. You can also use leading lines. I mentioned that on this image here. Adds a little bit of depth too, but it's basically the same. All right, that's the end of lesson 6. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you later.